without confusing our readers. Let's meditate on that for a second. So, what if we added this parenthetic expression, unless you're pressed for time, but we didn't use commas? So let's just imagine the black is just, in this case, indicates they're not there. Let's imagine the commas are not there and try reading it. It would sound like this. The best way to see a country, unless you are pressed for time, is to travel on foot. Now, it might be hard to tell right now because we've heard the sentence a few times and it's becoming very familiar. But to someone who's hearing it for the first time, that could actually be quite confusing. It's so much information smushed together without any natural pauses to breathe and to sort of allow your listener or your reader to understand what's being said. It can be really confusing. So the reason we're adding commas around the parenthetic expression is to literally just help it make sense to our reader. It helps them slow down and kind of sort through the information as it's being expressed. So we're going to add the comma back in. And again, it says, the best way to see a country, pause, unless you are pressed for time, added information, pause, is to travel on foot. So that's what this means, that we put parenthetic expressions between commas to add information to a sentence without confusing our readers. Because that, if we're writing and someone's just getting confused, it's pretty much defeating the purpose we had in writing, because we're always trying to communicate something to them. It's very rare that writing is intending to confuse. Although, of course, that you could think of an outlandish example where that happens, but it's not common. Okay, let's keep scratching. Here's some more examples. Ooh, more examples. So fun. With the parenthetic expressions bolded. Yes, so like here, as we did in the first example, we're going to find them bolded. Uncle Bert, being slightly deaf, moved forward. So the parenthetic expression is bolded. For the sake of just trying things out, let's try and remove it. If we take this out, it just says, Uncle Bert moved forward. That is a complete sentence. Uncle Bert is the subject, moved forward is the verb, and it expresses a complete thought. And if we remove the parenthetic expression, it still makes sense, but we've just added information to enrich in the sentence, to make it more interesting, to make it more informative. So we've just made it a little bit better. Let's see if there's any other examples. Oh yeah, in 1769, when Napoleon was born, Corsica, for those of you who don't know, Corsica is where Napoleon was born. It's the country he was from, or the sort of state of France, I guess. Corsica had recently been acquired by France. So the parenthetic expression is when Napoleon was born. It's adding interesting but non-essential information. Again, let's try it without the bolded sentence. In 1769, Corsica had recently been acquired by France. That is a complete sentence, and we're adding the parenthetic expression when Napoleon was born to just sort of enrich in, to liven up, to add color to the sentence. And again, for the sake of argument, let's try reading it, pretending that there wasn't commas added, that we had a parenthetic expression without commas. It would say, in 1769, when Napoleon was born, Corsica had recently been acquired by France. So again, does it make sense? It does make sense. The problem is that it's poorly written. It'll come across as confusing, as somewhat sloppy, and our readers are much more likely to be confused because we've added a parenthetic expression, but we haven't enclosed it or surrounded it between two commas. So I hope those examples are clear. Let's see if there's a last little point here. It says we call them parenthetic expressions because they sometimes contain, because they are sometimes contained in parenthesis. Now, though, it is more common to use commas. Yeah, so that's what I was saying at the start. We still use this old-fashioned term, parenthetic expression, but really it's almost like a misnamed term in modern times because it's much more rare to actually use parentheses for that purpose. So that's kind of the heart of the lesson. Let's shift over. Yeah, let's shift over here. Oh, no, sorry. Let's shift over here for a second and look at some examples. So just to close things off, let's see if we can do some practices. So I'm going to read the instructions. Practice. Each of the following sentences contains a parenthetic expression, but the commas that help us to see them have been removed. So each of these sentences has a parenthetic expression, but I've taken the commas out. Add 2 commas to each sentence to correctly enclose the parenthetic expression. So our task here is to re-add the commas where they were meant to go. I'm going to read them out, and I want you to try and just on your screen, you can use your finger and just try and sort of mark out where you think the commas go. Jesse Owens was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, track athletes of all time. Jesse Owens was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, track athletes of all time. So this sentence right now isn't really making sense, and we need to add 2 commas. So let's give you a second to see if you can do it. So the first step is going to be identify the part of the sentence that you think is the parenthetic expression, and the second will be to mark where you want to put the commas. Okay, so the answer is Jesse Owens was one of the greatest, pause, if not the greatest, pause, track athletes of all time. Right, so if we take out this part, if we just say Jesse Owens is one of the greatest track athletes of all time, it's still a complete sentence, and all we're doing here is adding some information that makes the sentence richer, but it does not complete it. So those are where the commas go there. Let's look at the second one. I'm thinking of taking a trip by boat to Europe. I am thinking of taking a trip by boat to Europe. Take a second, you can pause the video if you need to, and try and identify what part of the sentence is parenthetic and where the 2 commas should go. The answer is that the parenthetic expression is by boat. So the comma will go before and after those 2 words. I'm thinking of taking a trip by boat to Europe. To test if we're right, we can try saying the sentence with what we think is the parenthetic expression removed and test to see if it still fully makes sense. Let's see if it passes the test. I am thinking of taking a trip to Europe. Is that a complete sentence? It definitely is. And by boat, it fundamentally is not changing the sentence, not completing it, it's just adding information. So by putting the 2 commas in, we just help the sentence flow nicer, sound better, and be easier to understand. Let's do one more example. Okay, let's just pick number 3. I turned on the TV, which was a 3D Samsung, and watched the game. I turned on the TV, which was a 3D Samsung, and watched the game. So what part of the sentence is parenthetic? What's added information but is not essential to the sentence? The answer is which was a 3D Samsung. So we're going to put the commas right here and right here. This part of the sentence, it's just adding information about the TV. It's kind of interesting. It gives us more information, but without it, we would just say, I turned on the TV and watched the game. It still makes total sense. And again, if we didn't use the commas, it would say, I turned on the TV, which was a 3D Samsung, and watched the game. It's just a bit more confusing and a bit harder to understand. And that's why we add commas around parenthetic expressions. I hope that you've liked this video. I hope you've learned something. Please like, subscribe, all the good stuff, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.